Good afternoon, everyone. My name is William Berg. I'm the president of Sacramento Heritage Incorporated. Welcome to the second edition of our window workshop. Some of you may have been to the one we did in October. This is I think it's going to cover a little bit of the same ground, but a lot that wasn't covered then. And it's going to be very hands-on, so Tim really encourages people to get close, so not only so they can see what's going on, but so they can hear what's going on. Your questions, of course, will be welcome. And I'm not sure what to say about Tim that wasn't already put forward, but Tim has got a terrific reputation as a restorer of woodwork in many of our historic buildings, from the Stanford Mansion, Old Sacramento, Sutter Sport, and many other places throughout the city. And he teaches classes at Asilomar for California State Parks and other places, so we're very grateful to have his wisdom and experience here today that he can share with you. Without any further ado, I'll let Tim get things started.
Thanks. I want to let you know, my name is Tim White. I work for California State Parks as a restoration work specialist. And I just kind of stumbled into this. I don't have a master's in historic restoration. I've just been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for about 3.5 years. Prior to that, I was an independent contractor, and I work almost exclusively on older houses, all the bungalows and Victorians and Midtown Curtis Park area. So I picked up a lot of tricks, and that's how I learned things, sharing ideas with people, that sort of thing. And I've done a lot with windows, and I've rebuilt probably more than 200, but less than 500, so there's a lot. You still learn things with every window, so every situation is different. I found that the era from about the 1880s, 1890s up until about the 30s, those were the ones I did most, and those are the ones that I like the most because the design is fantastic. And I really wish that they would have built upon that design since the 30s instead of planned obsolescence and all the things that are giving us the problems that we have today. So basically, a little overview of how this is going to go today is I'll hit upon some big subjects really quick that I think we can all agree on, but just to give you some more information. And then I'll take this window apart, and then I'll discuss the opening, how to deal with the opening. Then we'll take a little short break, and then we'll talk about the window sashes and deal with rock. And I'll show you how to cut glass. We might even yank the window apart. So I'm going to throw a lot of information out there. There's just a lot of little tricks, a lot of products I like to use. Like I said, I'm not selling a product. I'm not selling a process. This is just the way I've done it for a long time and had success. So I'm just here to share that information. And I hope you get something from it. If you have any questions, please just stop me and ask. Also, when we get to taking things apart and doing stuff and cutting glass, if you don't want to sit down, just come on up and take a look up close. I encourage that because it's better than having a PA and doing this on the screen. So
Can you speak a little louder?
I can try to speak louder, but I also encourage if you can't hear me, come on up and if you have questions or you can't hear something, let me know. So that said, I think we're all probably a little disgusted with, say, an old 100-year-old house that somebody puts new plastic windows in, which is why you're probably here. You probably want to learn what the alternative is. And the arguments that the window industry uses, I'm sure you all believe that it's kind of an industry that doesn't make sense for old houses. And I'm not a math and science person. I'm an art person. So I don't really do numbers that well. But I've heard a statistic somewhere around 85% of your energy inefficiency is created from something other than your windows, if you have an older house. And I've talked to other people that know this a lot better, and they say, like 90 or 80%. It's still in that general ballpark. So if you take that statistic and you realize, what about my attic insulation? What about my doors? What about all the insulation on the shell of my house? All that stuff that you don't see. That's where all your energy loss is, not your windows. But the window industry wants to sell windows, and they say they've got the latest, greatest things. If you've got some pretty messed up old windows that have been painted shut, the ropes are broken, you think, maybe I should just buy new windows. A lot of people go down that road. And tell you, when I was a general contractor, somebody wanted to put in new windows, you go like, well, it's $500,000 for the window, depending on the size and the quality. And then you're dealing with like, probably another 500 to 1,000 for installation and dealing with the trim. No new window, even if they look like historic windows, they're not built in the same way, they don't look the same way, and you often have to scratch your head trying to figure out the trim to make things look right, but it never looks right. So if you put new windows in an old house, it's not appealing. And I think when you go to sell that house, it's going to be not as good as if you just put the time and effort into your windows. So, one other big topic I want to talk about is the economics of this situation. On top of that, what I just said, like it's a lot cheaper to rebuild these. If you do the work yourself, I'm going to talk a lot about tools, really nice tools that I like to use, products that are more expensive than cheap products that you get at Home Depot. I'm saying this knowing that if you're not replacing your window and spending $2,000, you can buy a lot of stuff. Like if you're going to do a handful of windows, you can buy a lot of stuff and you can use that on other projects and different circumstances with your house. So just keep that in mind. And also, I work for state parks, but I'm not in management. I don't make a bunch of money either, so I can't afford a lot of tools. But I have a lot of these things are from my own personal collection, and I'll spend money on the quality things because they work. They work right. And if you're going to use them again and again and again, it's a whole lot cheaper than the alternative. So, okay. I'm going to show you how to take a window out, and we'll start digging into this. So I encourage you, if you want to get up and take a look up close, I'll grab some tools and we'll talk about the process. I'm going to assume with this window, I'm going to show you the approach that I take. And I've seen a lot of problems, and this window actually doesn't have the problem that you see with a lot of them where it's painted. Everything is just painted and it's just gunked up. 100 years of just good and bad paint jobs. And oftentimes they don't open, or you have sagging pieces, rotted pieces, and I'll address all that stuff. And if you have specific things with your house, let me know. But typically what I'll do is, knowing how this is put together, I will come along with a razor knife, and I'll break the seal right there as carefully as I can, because I want to reuse all of these parts that I can, because even if you can make or buy new pieces, they're not going to be as good. And I'll get into that too. So up here, especially up there, and put in a brand new blade on your knife and be really careful and just try to follow that edge and break the seal. If you can see dimples through the paint of where the nail heads were, that helps. What I like to do then is put a 5-in-1 tool or 50,000-in-1 tool to the iron. They're like razor blades, they keep adding more blades. But I try to go like above or below the nail and pop this in there, take a hammer, do that, and just kind of pry it out a little bit, just very gently, but just enough to where you can get cat's paw. You want to get that edge in there. So once you're able to do that, then you're home free. Take that off, assuming that, we're popping this thing off. And you want to also be careful too, because if you really wrench on this, you're going to start dimpling that edge. And the more you wrench on that, it's going to look ugly. When you put it all back together and you strip all your paint, you got all these nice clean edges, it's going to look ugly because you can't fix those. So you want to be really careful to just kind of pop it a little bit at a time. I try to start on one end and work up to the, like I work from the bottom to the top or top to the bottom, either way. So just kind of pop that off, and you'll feel it, especially when you can hit those nails. You want to put a little bit more pressure wherever those nails are. And like I said, you don't want to try to pull too much on one end, because if you break this, you have to make it or glue it, and if you just take a little bit more time and a little more care, you can get it off in one piece, and it's worth reusing. So let's pop that thing off first. And that's called our window stop. And also, there are a lot of terms for a lot of these window pieces. kind of doesn't matter to me. I'm not one of the sticklers for the terms. Sometimes it helps if you're talking to other people that know what they are, like, hey, I need to make some parting bead, then, you know, it's good to use those terms. But otherwise, they're just window pieces, know what they do, anyway, we got the window stop off. If you work from one side, you can theoretically pull the sash out from that side. Also, let's think about that. I've seen a lot of situations where people have put a bead of caulk in there, they've crammed all kinds of stuff in there, they put a bead of caulk there, they put a bead of caulk all the way across the bottom. You want to do the same thing, take your razor knife and just break that caulking seal or any paint that's built in all the layers. And you want to clean that up really good. Sometimes you have to go to the other side and they've caulked everything from the outside too, and you want to clean those or cut those edges. It's the same kind of thing. If you know how it's going to work, it makes a big difference. I've worked on people's windows who are happy to have me work on their windows, and they're like, oh, I didn't even know the upper sash opened. Because a lot of these houses, they've just been painted shut for so long because nobody opens the upper window sash. But if you have pets, it comes in really handy. So we want to take the rope off. There are a couple different scenarios that I've seen. This is the one that makes me the happiest because it's really easy. It just has a hole here. I don't know if you can all see that if you need to, but you know, come on up if you need to. But it just has a hole, and you can just pop that right off, and it works out great. Some window sashes have, between the hole and between this part, it has a solid piece, and you can't just yank that off. Sometimes when people have replaced the ropes, they just cut that wood back, and so it makes it sloppy in there. You can't undo that, it's fine. But what you want to do in a situation like that is if you can grab some needle-nose pliers. Oh, scraps.
Sometimes they nail that knot in, don't they?
And sometimes they do that
Oh,
also.
yeah.
So, and it can be any combination of any of these things.
I have a question. Are you doing that from the inside or from the outside of the house?
I tend to try to work on the windows from the inside. Mostly because if it's the second story, I don't want to do this stuff off ladder. I'm not a young person, and it's not fun. Plus, if it's 116 degrees in Sacramento, that's not fun either. And you can actually get to most things from the inside, and it works better to work from the inside. So, if we're going to just assume that there is some wood there, or if there is a nail even, because this one originally had a nail, keep it in there for discussion purposes. But you could just like try to pull out the nail and try to pull this out through there, and then I would just cut it and very carefully lift it back up. Make sense? Any questions?
What about if the rope has been cut off?
That's great. Don't worry about it. Because every time I open a window, I've gotten to the point to where I'm just going to replace the rope. I don't care if it looks pretty good. I don't care if they use decent rope. I just feel better. I've got rope. I've got the window apart. 9 times out of 10, this is going to be the last time any of us take this window apart if it's done well, unless somebody breaks it.
What do you think about sash chain instead of rope when you're rebuilding it? I've replaced so many ropes, you know, it's sort of going to change.
Let me yank this out real quick. We'll talk about rope. Because that's putting the cart a little bit before the horse at this stage, but just to talk about the rope since it was brought up. And on the materials list, Samson number 8 spot cord. And you don't have to write that down, it's on the list. I think there might be some other companies that make decent window sash cord, but why? This company's been around doing this stuff for over 100 years, and it's got a nylon core. I don't think the original stuff had nylon core, but this stuff is strong, it doesn't stretch, and it's probably going to outlive any of us. So since it was made for windows 100 years ago, it works great.
My father, when he rented my house, I ended up with used the cheap cotton, and within 5 years, especially the south side, that cotton, sure enough, I'd go open a window and whomp,
Yeah, if you go to Ace Hardware and you buy some window sash cord, it'd be like $8 for a roll about like this. You buy this stuff on Amazon, it costs about $40. You get what you pay for though. It's like, and, you know, look at that big picture of like $2,000 a window for not replacing it. It's like, yeah, spend a little bit more money, get the right stuff. Put the right stuff in, then you're stuck. And if you're gonna open up a window, just re-rope it, and then you're done. So, because I've even seen this stuff that's been around in a window for a long time and it's still fine and it's been painted a bunch of times, but you're in there anyway, just replace the rope.
Are you
So,
going to talk about the knot that you make?
oh yeah, yeah. That's why this takes so long.
Okay.
It's not an hour-long YouTube video. So, okay, so the next thing you want to do before you take the upper sash out is this thing here is called the parting bead. And this is an old window, but I kind of wish, the great thing is that it wasn't painted a gazillion times, which works really well in many circumstances. But if it was painted a bunch of times, you'd have to spend a lot of time to go through and carve all that stuff out. But to get the parting bead out, once I've cut all that stuff, this is a seam tool for sheet metal. This is not for windows. You can get this any tool store. It's great for parting beads because it does this. And once again, the parting beads, you want to find the nails if they're there. Parting beads oftentimes have two ways of installation. Either they're just pressure fit to where it's a perfect fit and it has just enough tension to where it doesn't have any nails at all. That's great. Oftentimes they're just like 3 or 4 nails, just holding it in place. That's better because as the wood gets wonky, it's not gonna start causing any problems. But it's harder to remove. So, and you also have this situation here where you pull that out, you're going to be hitting that. You have to work around that. But this tool is great because you can, especially if you find the nail, you just gently pull. And same thing, kind of work your way in one direction and try to not break it. And this is the piece that is really easy to break.
What's the name of that tool, Tim?
It's a sheet metal seam tool. I don't know exactly, but it looks like that. You take a picture of it under a break, and then for years I used to just very carefully pull these things out by hand. I got pretty good at it, but I love that. So it saves a lot. And I've broken a lot of these too because they are tricky to get out. And you almost have to know. Like you want to twist it this way, you want to make sure the bottom is free. They're always built up with paint at that bottom edge, so you want to cut it.
And if you do break it, what do you do?
I'll get to that.
Sorry.
Oh, I've broken many of them. So, get that thing out. You're happy you didn't break it. Okay, so pull this down. You're going to have the same issues with your ropes.
Does it make sense just to take out the one stop and parting bead and leave the other ones in, especially if they're old and tinted? Or, well, I guess I'll have to pull them out if I'm going to change the ropes.
I take it all apart
Yeah.
because I really have found after doing a bunch of these that just take everything apart and just deal with the whole opening, and it makes everything a whole lot better. Plus, you're going to need to take the stop and parting bead out to get to this little pocket door to change your ropes. And like I said, if I'm pulling the sashes out, I'm changing the ropes. These little doors, this is the best little door. So, this window came from my house, and I'm really thankful I have this type. Another type that I have, and I'm sure I've seen it more often than not, it has you'll see two cuts. So instead of it being cut perpendicularly there, it'd be cut at an angle here and at an angle there. And it's a similar kind of design where they cut it, and I don't know how they did this at the factories when they made these, but they would cut in partially, and then they would cut in partially there, but not enough to, this would still be attached. So if the window had never been taken apart, the best way I found to do this is like, feel really good, you just have your coffee, and just bang it really soundly there and there. That doesn't always work, but you know, you could use like a really like gentle tap with a little rubber mallet or something like that. There's just something to try to break the wood without destroying it, because you don't want to, otherwise you'll get cracks all the way up in here and it causes all kinds of problems. Then you can pretty much, you know, because you have this opening here, you can get in there and kind of wiggle around and try to get it to like break this way. Sometimes if you're lucky, you can get it to just break and then pop right out. So it's a little finessey, it takes a little experience getting used to it, but I've talked to other window people that have done this a lot too, and everybody just goes, yeah, you just kind of figure out how to break that seam and get it out of there.
I don't have that pocket on
I
mine.
don't either.
Are you sure? Okay.
What's the purpose?
Well, and here's the thing, I've seen this type, I've seen the one with the angle. Older houses, 1880s-ish, 1870s-ish, has this basic type, but it'll have a screw at the top and the bottom. Those are the best, because you can just undo the screw, pop it out. It's very civilized. And I've seen some that don't have little doors at all. And I just always felt frustrated at that point, because you can't do this. You can't do this. What you have to do in that circumstance is you have to take the trim off. And you can take the trim off, but you have to, and you want to use the same methods of, you know, cutting your seam and trying to get in there with the same tools, being really careful, finding those nails. And it's tricky because it's going to want to split, it's going to want to, like, a piece is going to want to break off, and it's got so many layers of paint, it's been on there for forever. It's hard to, you just have to be very careful about taking that off. And that's just all you can do. But you have to expose the trim on both sides to be able to replace your rope.
I did it on the outside trim instead of the inside,
Yeah, either way.
because it's easier to patch and sand and paint the outside.
If you have a house like this with brick mold and stucco, you can't do that. So you take it off from the inside, and you know, this house is from the 20s and it just has flat trim. So it makes it a little bit easier to do it from the inside. If you have really elaborate stained